I came in one day and I had on just a polo rugby, some jeans, and some Jordans. One of my students was like, "Man, my professor hella fresh." In undergrad, I was a double major in accounting and public policy. I went to DePaul University in Chicago because I was gonna play basketball. I ended up walking across the street one day and getting hit by a car. I wanted to do financial literacy for athletes. I wanted to help athletes not lose their money. I get in this car accident, had to drop out of school, come back, didn't know what I was gonna do. I had a public policy class about Black and brown students and educational policy. First Black professor I'd ever had. He asked this question. He goes, "Who do you think is the most influential Black person in American history?" I raised my hand and he's like, "Who do you say?" And I said, "Charles Drew." And I was like, well, considering the stuff he did with blood plasma, right? That's useful to everybody. Everybody needs blood. Everybody needs, I said, so he wasn't just important to Black people. He was important to everybody because blood is a universal thing. And he was like, "Oh, yeah, that's impressive answer." Like towards the end of the semester, he goes, "You're too smart to be an accounting major. You be good in public policy." And he said, "We have this program called McNair Scholars. They're recruiting for their new cohort, but you need to turn your application in like 2 weeks. It's a program specifically for underrepresented or, Black students who want to earn a PhD." And in 2 weeks, I realized yeah, this is what I want to do with my life. As a millennial in academia, the perspectives and things that I bring to academic spaces or institutionally academic spaces are different. For me, Professor Fresh is making sure that I try to bring something fresh into every space I enter. I was 2 weeks out of hip surgery, and I remember the first lecture I did, half of the class was convincing the students that I wasn't a student. And they're like, "Where's the teacher?" I'm like, "I'm the teacher." They like, "Bullshit." Right? So a lot of it was me running down my background. The first class, we ended up having a conversation about police brutality in Oakland. Right? So in terms of talking about social problems, the first thing I talked about is what's the biggest problem y'all have here? And they were like, police brutality. Right? And I moved to Oakland right in the midst of the Oscar Grant trials, where we just had a conversation. How do you define a social problem? What makes something a problem? And then how do you address it? Reading Bobby Seale Seize the Time and talking about how him and Huey Newton started the Black Panther Party at Merritt College. To be able to work there, even though the location is different from the original location, the history and tradition of revolutionary education that institution represented, for me, it was like a dream come true. Huey Newton's brother was on my hiring committee. When I got that position, I felt honored. I felt like it was my job to continue the legacy of the Black Panthers in education. Right now, I teach at Xavier University of Louisiana. It's HBCU in New Orleans. I teach sociology and African American and diaspora studies. I'm the head of our crime and social justice concentration. As one of my heroines, Assata Shakur says, she says, theory and praxis, they have to go together. I call it applied sociology. I tell them that if you're learning in my classes should help you navigate your everyday life, your relationships with your friends and family, the way you approach a job situation, your finances. So I teach from a practical perspective. My teaching style comes from my emceeing style, right? So in terms of being an artist, I engage my students like I would engage a crowd that I'm performing for, meaning I want to make sure that I have your attention. So I don't just stand in front of my class and talk. I move around. People tell me that when I talk, it just kind of has a rhythm to it. And I think that comes from hip hop and emceeing, but also it's a call and response. So if I'm saying something, I want my students to respond back to me. It's kind of like a cipher in a lot of ways. I want people to not only speak, but contribute and add to what other people are saying. They all have something they can bring to the classroom, and I want them to bring that. Because as much as I'm a teacher, I'm a student. So I don't want to go through a class and not learn anything myself. For me, hip hop is how you blend elements together. So in my classrooms, I'm in the Department of Sociology, But I lean on political science. I lean on African diaspora studies. I lean on psychology because to me, everything is connected. One of my favorite albums of all time is The Roots Game Theory. For me, it captured the way I was feeling as a black person in America during that time. You know, if you look at the album cover, it's like a stick figure and a hangman's noose, right? And you're talking about, not knowing what direction you're going in. Like, I was really motivated by that in grad school because the work I was doing and the work I continue to do, it seeks to provide understanding for black people trying to find liberation in some ways. One thing hip hop taught me is to be confident in who you are. The way I dress is a political statement. I dress like this on purpose so my students can know that they can be themselves and still be brilliant and still be respected and still be dope at what they do if they put the work in. My heroes be them freedom fighters, but would they look at my character and want me beside them? Them warrior chariots, am I worthy to ride in? Do I got the heart to bleed in silence? No guarantee to see tomorrow, but believe in violence. A self-defense against regimes as tyrants. I read Asada's book Inspire, but what I received was silent flee this country for the islands. It's just my question sitting on the shoulders of the giants. Got me feeling like I know my commitment sometimes ain't what it used to be. I guarantee my people's freedom means a lot to me. I think about my heroes wondering if they're proud of me. Then back to working, so undoubtedly they gotta be. I'm writing papers no one reads, and rhymes nobody listens. I work to teach the children to be soldiers with a mission, but that alone don't get a revolutionary mention. Speak against the child labor with these Nikes that they stitching. Right, my homies in the prison, but I ain't changing the system. My position and my privilege give my activism limits. Got the luxuries to pick and choose my causes and my interests. The places I be living, they was lynched to get that entrance. So I know my focus sometimes ain't where it ought to be. I guarantee my people's freedom means a lot to me. I think about my heroes wondering if they proud of me. Then back to working, so undoubtedly they gotta be.